Hey, good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here with you. I love the title of this thing that you do, Let's Talk About. And I thought, you guys probably all have a cup of coffee with you, so I decided to join you in that aspect. And it's nice to sit down and talk about things. So today what we're going to talk about is posture and the consequences of postural neglect. And so I am Eric Shortmiller. I'm a physical therapist at Physical Therapy and Balance Centers. It's spelled different because we are. And we've been in business coming up 23 and a half years, I guess now. I've been a therapist for 30 years, and that kind of blew me out of the water when somebody asked me that the other day. I am also a physical therapist who is trained in the Mckenzie system. And so I wanted to start a little bit today talking about that system and about how that impacts posture and the importance of posture in what we do. So I'll start with a story. And this was back in 1956. And Robin Mckenzie is a physical therapist working in New Zealand. And back in 1956, the standard of care for back problems or spine problems was hit them with some ultrasound, do some hot packs, do a little bit of soft tissue work, massage, and that was about all you did. And Mckenzie had a patient, Mr. Smith, he calls him, who was having pain in his low back, and it was radiating down the buttock into the thigh. And Mr. Smith could not stand up straight. He could not bend forward. He was fairly well stuck with this pain that was just significant. Mckenzie had been working in room 4 and had told Mr. Smith to head into room 4 and lay down on your stomach. I'll be right in. Mckenzie didn't realize that Mr. Smith was moving into a room where a patient had had the table sitting up like this. So the patient goes in and lays down on his stomach, and he's starting to bend a little bit backwards. Again, not the thing we did in 1956. And so Mckenzie was a few minutes late getting in there. He got in there and he walked in. He was like, oh my, what's going on here? And he asked Mr. Smith very calmly, of course, oh, how are you feeling? And Smith said, oh, the pain is out of my leg, it's out of my buttock, a little bit of tightness in the back, but I feel better than I felt in months. And that started Mckenzie on this sort of journey of looking at ways to treat the spine. And he came upon this concept that he calls mechanical spine pain. So when I was in PT school, every course we had started with anatomy. So you folks all get to be part of that as well. And I'm going to start with just talking a little bit about anatomy. So when we first think about the spine, we have these components that are called the vertebrae. And the vertebrae has a vertebral body here in the front. It has a spinous process in the back and some transverse processes that come out the side here. And that is the bony segment. Okay, inside this bony segment is a canal right here where my finger is, and that is the spinal canal. So it's a nice encased structure. What sits in between there is the disc. Now the disc it has a soft fluid center, and that soft fluid center is called the nucleus, and surrounding that nucleus is what we call the annulus fibrosus. Now the annulus fibrosus is, think of the tissue as cartilage that's sort of like ligaments. And the first layer is oriented this way, the next layer is oriented this way, and this way, and this way, and they just layer out like that, creating a very strong structure that protects the nucleus in the center. And so they work together as rubber washers, if you want to think of it in those terms. So when I grab the whole spine, you have all of these vertebral segments that are here, and those discs sit in between there. And those rubber washers, those discs allow for shock absorption. They change shape a little bit, so they allow for movement. So when we start to move our spine, those discs help to allow some of that movement to occur. So you have these segments. These segments are all connected to each other with joints, okay? So let's start up here at the neck. And these joints are called right here, where one bone connects to the other. That little juncture, that joint is right there. And so you have lots of these that go above and below. And the really neat thing about this joint is that it's held together by a series of things. There's the capsule that surrounds that joint, and these are called facet joints. These joints are surrounded by a capsule that's really dense, thick connective tissue. And then you have, on top of that, ligaments that attach bone to bone. And then on top of that, you have muscles that are layered. Those muscles have tendons at the end that attach to bone. So there's a number of structures here that provide that stability around all of those joints, all the way down to the lumbar spine. So there's not a test later, don't worry. But you have 7 of these cervical guys, you got 12 of these thoracic guys in the middle, and you have 5 lumbar vertebrae down in the bottom. And then at the bottom is this sacrum, and that's a fused 5-segment structure that sits in between the 2 sides of the pelvis, the iliums. Okay, so like I said, no test, don't worry. At the top of this structure, we have the skull. And on top of that skull is where you have your computer, your brain. And that brain is always taking input in from the nerves, which exit through these little holes here. These are your spinal nerves coming from the spinal cord, which again was in that spinal canal. And so what happens is the nerves are taking input in from out here, and they are sending messages back. So they will send messages to the muscles to make you move and to provide power. And then they will also take input and send it to the skin for things that you might feel or to know where you're at in space. So you have this wonderfully complex system that allows for movement, that also allows for support. Okay, so there's all sorts of stuff going on there that's pretty cool. Now, there's a couple of things I just jotted a couple notes that I don't want to forget about. You have that brain at the top of the skull. It helps to support the head, but it also allows us to move in many, many directions. So at the top of the spine, again, we have these facet joints. And up here at the top, they're oriented flat, like this. And then as we start to move from that flat position, they start to become more obliquely oriented, angled like this. And that allows for you to move your head in a variety of ways and directions that you can support yourself. So that's pretty cool. And ideally, all of that would be held up by those muscles and tendons and joints and structures. So you have the ability to move, and you also have the structural component. So ideally, that would be held up in this natural posture. Now, sometimes we don't always hold ourselves in that posture, and we tend to lose some of that because of gravity, and also because of the pull, and because of what we do for function. And that can start to create trouble. So I want you all to engage with me here. We're going to do something. I'm going to have you take your finger. You're going to hold it up in the air. You're going to take your other finger, and you're going to start to place. Now, don't go fast. You're not going to rip this thing off. I want you just to start to place your finger on a little bit of stress. So start to bend that back, and you're going to feel a strain, a tightness. And again, this shouldn't be painful. I want you just to kind of hold it there for a second or two. And this happens, this is what can lead to mechanical pain. So mechanical pain is that which happens when you start to put a load on a structure, a tissue, after a little bit of time. And this can start to get painful. If I did this for a second or two, no big deal. But if I did that for an hour, that might start to get painful, because the nerves are going to start sending messages to the brain saying, this isn't good, man. We need to stop and do something different. So that's mechanical pain, and it can come on from being held in one position for a long time. Now, once more, I'm going to have you take your finger, and we're going to have you load it again. This time, I want you to bend the finger to that strain, and initially not too bad, But now I want you to go a little further, and you'll start to feel just a little bit of pain. Now, once you feel pain, go ahead and back off. Now, we've moved from strain over into pain. Again, messages are being sent to the brain saying, ooh, this is no good, man. That's this warning system that our body has to tell you, hey, we need to do something different. And this happens all over our body. You know, you might start to notice after you sit for a while that, ooh, I gotta shift and change position. That's your body saying, my tissue doesn't want to be loaded that long, and I need to unload it and get pressure off. So we need to pay attention to those messages as we go throughout our day. Now, again, with this thing, if I held this in this area of pain or strain for too long, things could start to worsen, and you might start to notice that pain increases. Now, this all has to do with a lot of the common causes of pain. And it's caused by overstretching of those ligaments or those other structures due to the postures that we're in. And of all of these postures, the most problematic one is usually our sitting posture. Because a lot of times what happens is we tend to start to shift our weight forward as we're looking at things, and we live in a time where so much of our communication, including this one, involves us using electronic media. And I've started to see this, you know, a number of years ago with kids with phones, adults with phones. You might be coming into the office and, you know, there's nothing better than to have your smartphones that you can play Mahjong or Candy Crush or check the news or reply to emails. But it means that we tend to be working on media or tools that tend to put us in a little bit more of a forward bent posture. So, you know, often I'll walk into the room and I'll see patients and they're, you know, down here looking at their phone. And it's not just kids, it's all of us. And I find myself doing it too. So it's not unique to any one age group. All of us do this. That can add up over time. Just going back to thinking about our finger, if I do this long enough, it's going to start to hurt. And that same thing happens with our media. Now, it might also happen on a computer. You know, years ago, we never, as a physical therapist, all my charts were done by hand. Now, all of the charts are electronic. So I'm going to be sitting on my keyboard and I'm going to be working here. And, you know, you're concentrating, you're thinking, and the next thing you know, you're starting to protrude forward and you're no longer in that nice upright posture. So the head frequently will cause some neck problems, and it's because we start to lose some of those postures. We tend to start to slouch a little bit. And as we slouch, because gravity is pulling, it's constant. Gravity is constant. It's never letting up, which is good because we're all staying here on Earth. But that gravity is constantly pulling on us to pull us back into here. So you can be strong as a rock. You can be a football player strong for the Seahawks, and you're still going to get this same gravitational pull yarding down on you all the time. So the head posture is one of them that tends to go forward. And our normal posture should be such that we have a little bit of an inward cervical curve that we call a lordosis. And then in that thoracic spine, it tends to curve a little bit outward. And then we get down to that lumbar spine and it should curve inward a little bit again. So it kind of creates this little S all the way up. And then that way the head on top has the ability to rotate, look around, look up, look down, and take input into our system. But if I start to slouch and slump forward, then this curve is lost. And so as I start to slump forward, now suddenly, instead of those S's, I have a little more of a C curve. So think about a newborn baby when they're laying on the ground, they're all rolled over. And as we grow and age and activate muscles, we start to encourage these lordosis curves. But because of function, we tend to lose those lordoses. And so the cervical spine tends to go forward and flatten out. And as that happens, then I have to still look up. So then I start to hyperextend at the upper cervical and I hyperflex at the lower cervical. And again, this is just like what we did with our fingers, where I'm loading you up and I'm aggravating you. So that's what happens to our spine with a lot of prolonged postures. So I wanted to go over some things we could do to help interrupt those postures and to move more often, more frequently throughout our day. Because I think if we move smartly, we can resolve some of these things that happen to us as we go through our day. So like I said, sitting. That's one of the most common things we do throughout the day, whether you're working on your bills, whether you're corresponding with children and family, doing Zoom calls, like I said, doing enjoyment activities. So let's look at some sitting postures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this down a little bit, and I'm going to move over here to this chair. So when we're sitting, it's easy to let gravity pull us down a little bit. And it's important to have a nice stable chair as much as we can to help hold us up. But even in these really nice chairs, we tend to lose a little bit of that. And some chairs allow us to really slouch over into less than ideal posture. So how do we maintain upright, erect posture to keep the balance over that spine? One of the easiest ways is to use a lumbar roll. So what we do is we take a lumbar roll, we put it at about belt height, kind of there, and we reestablish that lumbar lordosis. That automatically brings everything up, and my head is now more level here. The other thing that happens is when we're working a lot on our computers or our devices, it's important to have a little bit of ability to keep this up, because if my laptop is too low, I'm going to start protruding again. Even with this lumbar support, I can still really work to lose that balanced position. So bringing the keyboards up so the arms are kind of relaxed down to the side. Now I'm not having to elevate my shoulders too much, or I'm not reaching down too much, both of which increase that load. So if you can get the elbows in at the side and the keyboard here, kind of think about piano playing. Ideally, when we're playing piano, we're going to be kind of in this range right here. And so go back to your music lessons and think about how the teachers did that for you. So you want the keyboard to be in this area. You also want to bring that monitor up a little bit if you can. So you might need to add an external keyboard if you're working on a laptop to bring the monitor of the laptop up a bit so that you're not having to look down or look up too high. You want to find that sweet spot where the monitor is right in here. If you go to our website, physicalbellingham.com, a couple of my coworkers, Tyler and Kenny, put together a really nice video of proper ergonomics for computer use in the home. Because as we've been dealing with this public health emergency of COVID-19, we've had a lot of folks who have been working from home more than they used to. And the home environment is not always set up as well for doing our work. So you can check that out and get a few more clues about how to adjust things. But generally, think about sternum up, arms at the side, shoulders relaxed, head looking straight ahead. Use of a lumbar roll works really well there. Now, you might not have a lumbar roll, but I'll tell you what you probably have at the house is a towel. And so take a towel, and this is a great way to see if it's something helpful. Roll it up into a nice roll like this, and hey, that looks an awful lot like our lumbar roll, and it's a lot cheaper. So again, what you can do is take that lumbar roll or the towel roll and stick it right back there, and voila, you're back to having nice upright posture. That again helps to reduce this tendency for us to go into that slouched position. Now there's sleeping postures too, and those are tough. And sleeping is also important to help maintain that upright supported position. Well, not upright, but to maintain the same posture that you would have at night. So a lot of times when we're sleeping, we can end up having the pillow, and as you're laying there, you end up getting twisted or tilted. So taking the same towel roll, you can create a smaller roll and stick it into the bottom of the pillow and see if that helps. Now, I use this a lot for my patients who maybe are waking up in the morning with pain and not feeling great, headachy or sore, stiff. Sometimes a little bit of support helps to maintain that natural alignment of the spine with the head when you were laying on your side. So it's another nice tool to take and use. So there's so many things you can do with towels. like I said, instead of rolling it thickly, you can go lengthwise and again, roll it up into a little bit of a smaller roll, and you've got yourself a tool to stick into the pillow. So those are what you can do for nighttime. You can also throw a pillow between the knees to help maintain the hips a little bit better. You could also hug a pillow to keep yourself from rolling over too much. So there's lots of little things you could do to help with the postural stresses when you're stuck. That's the sitting portion. Let's talk about the standing portion and the work portion. And those things happen a lot throughout the day. Now, I like to have people think about keeping the sternum up. And so what I have people do is just visualize a little string tied here to your sternum, your breastbone right here, and think about that being pulled up, just up like that. And I tell you what, even just that little thing, whoop, automatically pulls you up. And if you do that 3 times today, that's better than yesterday. And that's those little changes that add up over time. So if you happen to pass by a mirror, just kind of go, where am I? Oh, there I am. Or if you're out walking and you pass by a window, just take a quick assessment. Oh, I should pull up a little bit. And again, doing that every day a little bit helps. In Tai Chi, which I used to teach in the class, but now we do it online, we talk about high horizon. And that means maintaining that upright position where we're looking out at the horizon, and we call it high horizon here versus low horizon. So high horizon, keeping that upright posture, and it's just a little change, but it really has big payoff. So I wanted to give you guys a couple more tools to put into your tool belt. So we have lumbar rolls that you can use when you're sitting. You have towel rolls that you can use at night if you're having some neck stuff. But there's a few little things you can do in terms of exercise to help you throughout the day. Now, these are not the same exercises that you're about to engage in your classes there at the Y, but I'm thinking some little tasks you could do throughout the day to help you get to this position. Because what's happened over time a lot is that we end up being here, and then as I'm here, these structures in the front get tighter, and these structures in the back get stretched out and weaker. So we need to combat that. We need to get those shoulder blades back and down. And how do we get shoulder blades back and down? We need to have the mobility in the front part of the body, and we have to have a little more strength in the back part of the body. So let's talk about some ways we can deal with that. So I'm going to spin you around here in our room, and I'm going to move you back just a little bit. And I'm going to go over to the doorway because I want you to have a couple things you can play with as long as you're feeling pretty good. So the first one is the doorway stretch. And what you can do is place your hands. You don't have to come way high. You can just start to come here and start to walk through the door just a little until you feel just a gentle stretch here. It tends to protrude, but think about just stepping at the door and just starting to step through gently until you feel a gentle pull here in the front. Again, shoulders don't have to be real high. You can come just to a gentle doorway stretch. The other nice thing about the doorway is that you can do some strengthening as well. So usually in the door jamb, we have a corner, and I like people to just go to the corner, and I like them to pinch that corner between their shoulder blades, as if you're holding a pencil back there, and just giving some feedback to the spine to know where you're at in space allows you to help get to this upright, erect posture. And then what I like you to do is to maintain that while you're walking and while you're moving. So we have doorway stretches, we have corner pinches. The other things you can do include, think about just kind of opening up and forming a W with your arms coming back. So I'm pulling those shoulder blades back, arms back, everything to open up here in the front while you're strengthening the backside. So easy little thing, it doesn't require equipment, and that's why you could just do this. You can do it with your arms down at the side. So there's lots of things to do to think about opening and lifting up. But again, I think probably the easiest one to do would be to just maintain that thought process about pulling up, thinking about high horizon and where am I in space and how do I maintain this position. So high horizon, eyes out, looking out that direction. Those are the big things that I would have you focus on. So I've been yapping, and to find that website, somebody asked this question. The website that we did in our office early in COVID season is Physical Bellingham, FYZICALBELLINGHAM.com. And I'll put that here in this thing for you guys. And there on our blog post, you'll find that there. Also, I believe if you go to our website, you'll see it there. Our Facebook page has a link to it, and then you can also find it from our blog post. So it'll be in those places. And again, some of us are working more often than ever from the home, and it's important to interrupt those postures. The other little tool that I would give you to do is, I have an Apple Watch that tells me every hour to change positions. And you can also set yourself a timer. And that way, what you can do is every 50 minutes, you can set a timer, and boop, 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 get up, move, just change that posture that you've been in. And any movement works. It's all good to do. So those are some tools that I would like you to do. So there you go. Stomach belly exercises to help improve my posture. Again, that's going to be working on strengthening some of this core stuff. There are some really great exercises out there. I'm a big fan of doing what we call slouch overcorrect. So if I tilt this down a little bit, let's see if I can do this. But you're here and slouching. It's sort of like a cat and camel, right? So I slouch over, and then as I come up, I engage those abs to help me do a cat and camel and sitting. And so good posture is going to a slouch, coming to an overcorrected sort of military posture, and then back off about 10%. Boom, there you are. You're in great posture right there. So that slouch overcorrect works well. Some really good core strengthening activities include being on all fours, if you're able to kneel, and doing cat camel, or doing some alternate arm lifts out to the side. Again, this is assuming that your back's doing well. You could do some core stuff with planks from knees or full planks. You could do some side planks on knees. Again, all that engages this thing. So we had talked earlier about those muscles. Those muscles are the guy wires that support that body. So those are some great ones to do in addition to any other tasks you're doing at home. Somebody asked if Physical is part of a larger network or just local. Well, Physical is a national network, but I am one of the owners. It's locally owned, and like I said, we started our clinic 23 years ago, and about 5 years ago, I decided to have our clinic join the Physical network, but I myself and Tori Lindblom are still the owners. And we own it. We just were able to use some of these things that Physical has provided, like the balance programs, the Fight the Fall campaign that we'll be working on this fall to help with overall balance. So for us, it was a great way to access some business things as well as some additional balance things that we didn't have access to. And it gives us access to a larger network. But it is still local. It is still me, it is Tori, it's the crew that we've had for the last 23 years, and we just changed our name to make it a little different. So locally known, locally owned, and nationally known is what they say. So anyway, it's been great to be with you. I see that I'm bumping right into 9:45, so I don't want to keep you guys too long from your next class. But if you have questions, again, shoot me an email, info@physicalbellingham.com, or you can call our office. We're in the Barclay Medical Center, 360-733-4008. Ask for my email, and I'll be glad to help you guys in whatever way I can. So again, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me this morning. I wish you all the best. Keep healthy, wear those masks when you need to, and keep moving.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric. That was excellent. I kept sitting up.
Perfect. I do too. This is the best part of my job, is I have to keep reminding you. people to
And
do
give
this,
you
so
one
I automatically remember. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Good luck,
Thank you
guys.
so much. We are going to go ahead and add all the links that you mentioned and the link to your website. And then if you could send me that link to that blog, that would be great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put this recording on our YouTube channel and we'll make it available on our Let's Talk About webpage. So we put all our speakers back on there just in case anybody misses out. So again, thank you so much, Eric. That was great. And we will hopefully be talking to you soon. Hopefully we can have you guest speak again soon.
My pleasure. It's been a joy. You guys all have a great day.